Hi guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today I am filming a very large book haul. I don't know about you guys, but the first few months of the year are always the hardest when it comes to self-control and buying books. Between all of the fantastic sales, I know I'm not the only one who shopped some of those over the holiday season, but also all of the favorite books of the year video just get me so inspired to pick up so many different types of books, which makes me actually really excited about this book haul because I have quite the range of different genres and authors, lots of new to me authors in this video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. The first few books I'm going to chat about are, of course, the January Book of the Month selects, who I am working with for this video. But if you guys are not familiar, Book of the Month is an online bookish subscription service. They essentially every single month curate a selection of 5 primary titles from a variety of different genres, voices in the bookish community, but they also curate a bunch of additional titles you can select, and you also have access to their entire backlog as well. You can select from this huge variety of novels and have them sent directly to your door, and they're always hardcover, which we love. And of course, if you're not interested in any of the titles for a particular month, it's very easy to skip. And I of course have an offer code for you guys. If you use my code Peruse Project, you're able to get your first box for only $9.99. I'll have a link down to their site as well as my code if you guys are interested in learning more. But let's chat about the 5 titles I'm personally most excited about for their selects for the month of January. First 2 books I'm going to quickly mention, but I would say both of them are huge releases for the month of January, so it's incredible that you're able to get them for such a good price. The first is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. This is a family-centered story, particularly about 2 siblings kind of coming back into each other's life after the passing of their mother. They have to deal with the unusual inheritance their mother left behind, which is a traditional Caribbean black cake, which is made from a family recipe. As well, with the cake, there's also a voice recording from their mother. This debut novel is about inheritance, betrayal, memories, and love, and it sounds amazing. And then you're also able to pick up Rachel Hawkins' new book, which is Reckless Girls. This author is known for The Wife Upstairs, which is a very popular thriller, so it's super cool you're able to grab her new release this month. The next 3 titles I would say are my personal favorites that you're able to select from. The first one is one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and I'm so excited to have it in my hands, and that is The Maid by Nita Prose. Everything about this book just sounds so entertaining. It also combines so many of my personal favorite kind of bookish tropes. This is said to be a Clue-like locked door mystery, as well as a heartwarming story that centers our main character, but this follows our main character Molly, and she's a 25-year-old maid who works in the Regency Hotel. She lives a very structured and organized life. Molly herself often struggles with social cues and also often misreads the intentions of others. However, at the beginning of the story, her entire world is upended as she enters the room of a very wealthy patron within the hotel, and she realizes that not only is his room in complete disarray, it also appears that he has been murdered. As the investigation begins to unfold, she realizes that she might be the police's main suspect. So she decides to take it upon herself to solve this murder. Again, I love whodunit style mysteries. This seems to combine all of those elements. I also really love that this also centers a main character that I think we're going to go on a bit of a personal journey with. So I'm hoping that this is both a gripping mystery, but also one that has a lot of heart at the center. So this is a book I personally cannot wait to read, and I'm so happy to have in my hands. There, you're also able to select Love and Other Disasters, which just the synopsis of this also immediately calls out to me, because this centers a fictional reality cooking show, and it also is a rom-com centered romance, and all of those things are like my favorite. I love competition, baking, cooking shows, so the fact that that's kind of the center of the plot just sounds so much fun and delightful. But this is a story that centers 2 main characters. The first is Dahlia, and she, despite having a marriage that just recently fell apart, is really excited because she scored a very coveted spot on this cooking reality TV show, and she is determined to make the best food of her life and not get distracted by her very hot co-contestant. The other main character we follow is London, and they are really excited to not only show their love of cooking on this reality TV show, they're also fighting for so much more. They are the first non-binary contestant to ever appear, and they're hoping to not only win the title, but also raise awareness and money for the queer community itself. So all of this begins to unravel when they begin to kind of have feelings for Dahlia. Again, I just think this sounds absolutely delightful. I love the concept, I love the setting, and I just love fluffy romantic comedy stories. Valentine's Day is coming up and I do tend to read more romances around that time, so this is a perfect book to add to my shelf. And the very last book I'm going to feature is for sure a more emotional option, but that is Fiona and Jane by Jean Chen Ho. This book just sounds honestly incredible. It is a book that focuses on a female friendship. This is a witty, warm, and irreverent book that follows two Taiwanese American women, and we follow them not only in their own lives, but it also traces their friendship over the span of 2 decades. Fiona and Jane have been close since they were children growing up in California, and this is a very windy tale that basically follows them on different major events of their lives. One of them moves to New York, one of them stays in California. You see their relationship go through a lot of different eras, strained by distance and unintended betrayals. Jane and Fiona kind of have to confront themselves, but you also see them as they hold on to each other, spanning the country as well as 2 different people. This is a story that alternates perspectives and is said to be a very intimate view on female friendship. I've heard really excellent things about this book immediately. I have many friends literally currently reading this and loving it. It just sounds incredible, very emotional, but I also feel like it's going to be one that's going to sit with me for a long time. Really excited to have this as well. Alrighty guys, those are 5 of the books you're able to select from Book of the Month this month. Be sure to check out the site to see their other titles, and again, I'll have a link as well as my coupon code linked down below. Let's go ahead and dive into the rest of the books I picked up recently. The first 2 books I picked up used. One of them is an accidental library copy, but that's all right. That is A Murder of Crows and A Vision in Silver. This is book 2 and book 3 to the other series. I read Written and Read in December and really enjoyed it. It is a paranormal, sort of like mystery, dramatic, slow burn romance story. I personally love paranormal fantasy romance books, and this I'm hoping is going to deliver, but keep in mind it's very slow burn. It basically follows our main character Meg, and she lives in a world where others exist alongside humanity, but they've had conflict for a very long time, so the others and humans live very separate from one another. Within human settlements there are places called courtyards where others reside. Others consist of lots of different paranormal creatures, from werewolves to vampires to elementals, the list goes on, and Meg works in one of these courtyards as a human liaison, but she herself also kind of has a power. She's a blood prophet, so she can see the future. A lot of the first book was kind of just setting up the world and introducing us to the characters. It was really like easy and comfortable to read, and I'm just really intrigued to see where the rest of the story is going to take off, so I just went ahead and picked up books 2 and 3 used online, and I'm really happy to have them in my hand. If you're interested in this series, there are a million used copies in the world, so I definitely recommend checking the pre-owned market, but I bought these. From there, I picked up a book by a very popular author, but this particular new release by her just really calls out to me, and that is Matrix by Lauren Groff. This is actually the UK cover. I really debated which version of this book I wanted to get, but the UK version was just so stunning, so I opted for it. I also just love these like floating nuns, but the synopsis of the story just sounds so interesting. I want to say this is a book set in the 15 or 1600s. It follows our main character Marie, who's 17 years old and a little too rowdy, a little too opinionated for courtly life. So at the beginning of the story, she is expelled from royal court and is sent to be a piress of an abbey. And then from there, I believe this sort of just documents the life of all of these different nuns. It's a story about like female ambition, but it also says to have a lot of heart. I think our main character Marie kind of unites all of these nuns together in some sort of like singular vision. It sounds so interesting. I've heard so many incredible things about this story. I think when you first hear it's about nuns in an abbey in like the 1600s, it might sound like it might be a little boring, but it's said to be wonderfully written, really unique, and just a story that absolutely pulls you in. So I'm really excited about this. It sounds really unique, and again, I love this UK cover, so I grabbed this, again trying to kind of expand my reading horizons a bit this year. So This sounded excellent. And then from there, I have a few books I picked up during a certain 50% off sale. The first is The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki. I actually have a Ruth Ozeki book on my January TBR, so when I saw that her new release was 50% off, I immediately grabbed it. And this is said to be a brilliantly inventive novel about loss, growing up, and our relationship with things. And this follows our main character, Benny, and after the tragic passing of his musician father, Benny is grieving. He also realizes that he is beginning to hear voices. And the voices themselves are coming from the objects that surround him, and while he can't necessarily understand exactly what they're saying, he can get a sense of their tone and their overall feeling. However, when his mother begins to form a hoarding problem, these voices become very overwhelming, so he oftentimes escapes the presence of his home and begins to meet all different types of people that kind of surround him. From a street artist to a homeless philosopher poet, we follow Benny as he begins to encounter the world. It's said to blend sympathetic characters, riveting plot, as well as beautiful writing, full of humor and wit and just heart. This sounds like a really original story. I love coming of age tales, and I think just the unusual elements of this book specifically just sound like it's going to be a riveting read. Again, I'm already planning on reading Ruth Ozeki this month. I knew I wanted to pick this book up, so I was thrilled to be able to get it for such a good price. Also, stunning cover. We love a strong typography moment. Next, I grabbed a book I have been planning to pick up for months, and that is Velvet Was the Night by Silvia Morano Garcia, one of my favorite authors. I love her writing, and everything about this book sounds incredible. This is actually a horror story, which I know I don't usually read because I am a scaredy cat, but it is a dark horror thriller story set in the 70s in Mexico City, and it's said to kind of follow the vibe of a film noir movie, which just the vibe of that, the atmosphere that that creates just sounds so cool. And I already know I love Silvia Morano Garcia's writing, which I just find to be captivating and beautiful. So just the concept of this, I could not say no to. But this is said to be a slow burn noir following a daydreaming secretary, a lonesome enforcer, and the mystery of a missing woman they're both desperate to find. Sounds amazing. I'm so happy to have this book. Next up is a book I've just heard so many amazing things. Again, a book that has been featured on many favorites lists. That is Hamnet, a novel of the plague by Maggie O'Farrell. This is set in England in 1580 and is set as the Black Death is slowly beginning to creep across the land, infecting the healthy and sick alike. We follow a young, penniless Latin tutor as he grapples with not only his abusive father, but also as he's begun to fall in love with a woman named Agnes. Agnes herself is a very eccentric woman, but is also known for being an excellent healer. She settles with her husband on Henley Street. She becomes fiercely protective of not only their family, but of course her husband, and also supports him as his career on the London stage is beginning to take off. I've heard so many great things about this particular book, about the writing. I hear it's incredibly transportive. Also very fascinated about any kind of fictional recount of Shakespeare, and this is definitely going to be that. This book is super popular. It's also not very long, so I feel like it'll be a quick read, but a very lush and atmospheric one, which also tend to be my favorite. Next is a book I've also just heard so many incredible things about, another book that's just made so many top lists of 2021, and that is Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. This is another historical fiction, literary fiction leaning story. The story itself really seems to expand over huge swaths of land and time, from Prohibition era Montana to the wilds of Alaska to wartime London to modern Los Angeles, in an epic tale of two extraordinary women whose fates collide across geography and centuries. If there's one trope I love, it's sort of a muddling of time and space and the merging of two unlikely perspectives together in one incredible epic of a story. I love it all. The first perspective we follow is Marion, and after she and her brother were rescued in 1914 after the sinking of a ship, she's raised by her uncle in Montana. There she discovers that she has a passion for airplanes and flight, and basically dedicates her entire life to aviation. Fast forward to a century later, we follow Hadley, who is preparing to play Marion in a movie adaptation of her life. So there, I believe, is kind of the merging of these two timelines. I think the concept of this is super fascinating. entertaining. I also love that it centers around aviation. I think that's a really unique sort of passion point within this book itself. I've heard so many good things about this, particularly my friend Max really sold this book to me. So I decided to pick it up. It seems to combine so many of my favorite things, so I'm hoping to love it. Next up, I have a box set, and wow, it has been, I feel like, a few years since I bought myself a box set, but you might recognize it. I decided to re-pick up Percy Jackson 1 through 5. I actually have no idea what happened to my copies of Percy Jackson. Basically, at the end of 2021, I got this very strong desire to reread Percy Jackson and the Olympians, and I was very sad to realize I didn't even own the books anymore. I read these as they came out in elementary school and middle school, which might age me a bit, but I loved it. And I actually have not reread the series since I initially read it when I was a child. So I thought, you know, let's give it another try. I obviously love Percy Jackson. I love Rick Riordan. I'm a huge middle grade fantasy fan. I've also heard good things about the audiobook, so I might read and listen to these. It also might be a fun challenge to try to read all of them at once, but I decided to re-pick these up because I love Percy Jackson and I want to reread them soon. Next up, I have a very heavy book, and that is The Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. This is the illustrated edition. This was another book I was able to get for 50% off, so a very good deal, especially because these illustrated editions are quite pricey. So I was able to get it for around $20, which I personally am pleased with. I still need to pick up the Royal Assassin version of this illustrated edition, but you know, I only have one left at this point. I love Robin Hobb. This is definitely a collector's item for me personally, though I do feel like once I reread the Farseer trilogy, which will for sure happen one day, I will pick up these illustrated editions, as I do think it's pretty cool. We get illustrations of Fitz, and the formatting of this book is just really nice. They're very dense and very well constructed. Plus, who doesn't love a dust jacket-less hardcover, you know? Stunning. We love the foiling. Next up is a book that just sounded pretty interesting to me, and that is Beasts and Beauty: Dangerous Tales by Shoman Chanini. This is the same author who wrote The School for Good and Evil, which also kind of plays on fairy tale tropes, but I believe this is a collection of like reimagining of well-known stories, kind of giving them a darker, grimmer edge to them. I love middle grade, and I still believe this falls in the middle grade category. I just believe these lean more in the truer nature of the tales themselves, which kind of calls out to me. I've been wanting to read another book by this author and kind of re-encounter his writing in a different setting, because I didn't love A School for Good and Evil, and the format of this book is beautiful. There are illustrations throughout, and they are very stunning. So I am a sucker for any type of fairy tale reimagining, so when I saw this, I said yes please, and here we are. Next up is Hell of a Book by Jason Mott. I believe this won the National Book Award, and again, I'm trying to beef up my shelves to have a bit more literary fiction and some faves from outside of my usual genre, and this was definitely one that is very beloved as well. This is said to be an astounding work of fiction, and I also hear it's very playful and tries to blur that line between reader and writer and kind of breaks the fourth wall. In Jason Mott's Hell of a Book, we basically follow a Black author who is just beginning his tour of the United States to promote his newly released story. This is the scaffolding of the book itself, but within that, there is a more urgent tale following a young Black boy named Soot, who's from a small rural town, who appears as an imaginary child to the author itself within this book. Honestly, I feel like this is a synopsis hard to describe, and the synopsis itself does it best. As these character stories build and converge, they astonish. For a while, this heartbreaking and magical book entertains, and is once about family, love of parents and children, art and money. It's also about the nation's reckoning with a tragic police shooting playing over and over again on the news, and with what it can mean to be Black in America. Who has been killed? Who is the kid? Will the author finish the book tour? And what kind of world will he leave behind? Unforgettably told, Hell of a Book is said to just be an incredible work. It obviously won the National Book Award, so it's been very lauded. All of the quotes on the back just say such incredible things about this story, so I decided to buy it for myself and add it to my shelf, and hopefully I will be reading it soon. The last book I picked up is Gold Diggers by Sanjia Sathian. This is said to be a witty and hilarious coming-of-age story that also has a lot of emotional depth that spans 2 continents, 2 coasts, and also laces the story with both magical realism and satire. This is also said to skewer the model minority myth, and also asks asks the question of what a community must do to achieve the American dream. This follows one of our main characters, Neil, and he is a floundering second-generation teenager growing up in Bush-era Atlanta. Neil himself is authentic, witty, and smart, but unfortunately he does not hold the same dreams or ambitions everyone in his family hopes him to have. He can't be like his perfect sister who just recently started at Duke, and he himself doesn't even really know what he wants, aside from the fact that he has a huge crush on Anita, who lives across from him in his cul-de-sac. Anita herself has her own problems. She and her mom are basically brewing an alchemic potion that harnesses the ambition of the jewelry's original owner. But as Neil becomes more involved in this plot, things begin to be a little more complicated. Again, I love this blend of magic and reality. I also just love the setup of the story. Coming of age tales are some of my favorites. This just sounds like such a unique way to tell such a familiar and poignant story. Alrighty guys, those are all the books I picked up recently. Please let me know down below some books you have gotten, as I would love to know. Again, big shout out to Book of the Month for sponsoring this video, and I will see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!